The Last Voyage of the Demeter, Universal's second attempt this year at doing a Dracula movie. Don't ask me why that happened. It seems just like, I guess, two ideas were in the air, and we want to try to make this a franchise? I guess, I don't know. Does Dracula work today? Unless we're doing like a comedy, like a What We Do in the Shadows or like a Hotel Transylvania? Do people want to see a Dracula thing like that? It is still a popular like idea because we have things like the Vampire Diaries still doing good on like repeat viewing, and you have things like Interview with the Vampire that's getting like a second season. So I guess like Vampire Fever is still pretty much as high as it's ever been. A Blade movie is still in development, but Dracula himself, is that interesting to people still? Very, very, very interesting to think about that. I'm sure he is. Like, come on, it's Dracula. You know the story, you know the narrative. But this year alone, Universal had two attempts at the bat. The first one being Renfield, which came out in May. If you haven't seen my review for that movie, one of my least favorite pictures to come out this year. Absolutely dreadful and not funny and terribly just crafted altogether. The Last Voyage of the Demeter is kind of like on the opposite side of the vampire narrative for Dracula. Renfield's a comedy. It's like, what if Renfield had like a toxic boss? And you're like, yeah, that is exactly what that movie presents. This is based on the captain's log, parts of chapters, and just like a narrative device in Bram Stoker's Dracula novel depicting the crew of the Demeter being destroyed before Dracula sets sail to London? Because he's leaving Romania to London, I think is what that narrative's setting up. And that's what this is. So right from the beginning, it has kind of like that Lightyear vibe to it, where there's like notes at the beginning where in Lightyear it's like, this is the movie Andy watched based on the toy he bought. Where this one's like, this is based on the chapter of the novel of the thing. You're like, okay, I mean, just basing it on one chapter is an idea. That is something to explore and talk about. Try it, you know? I mean, I guess starting the story here isn't a bad thing. The main problem with doing that is starting your story with, like, the beginning of, you know, Orloff's journey going to that place is that we know where it ends. So there's no real tension to that. No matter how many human characters you develop in this movie, we know the ultimate end game for this character is going to be Dracula's getting off the ship. Like, we know that's the case. So there is like some tension lost in that. But at the same time, you still like Alien knowing the people are gonna die, you know? Like, that's, I guess, is the biggest pitch for this movie, is it's Alien on a boat. And it is that. There is a lot of that vibe and a lot of that flavor in here. It's just kind of hard to capture that perfectly when we are authentically trying to emulate that. This is a movie that very much feels like you're watching a movie, which is such like a weird thing to say, but every time you're watching The Last Voyage of the Demeter, you are very much aware that this is a movie, and these are actors, and you're not like super engrossed in the narrative. You're like, yeah, this feels like I'm watching a movie right now. It's just a weird way to explain it, but you're like, yeah, these are actors, this isn't a real story, everything silly's happening, and you can see everything coming a mile away. That doesn't mean it's not interesting, you know? Even if it's the worst, most schlucky, B-list crap put to film, I'm always tempted to see what a Dracula or a movie like that's going to be. There have been some people of note saying that this movie emulates like the classic Hammer films, you know, like The House of Dracula, Dracula's Daughter, that kind of era of stuff. I get that. If we took like today's sensibilities where we spend too much time developing our characters, we focus on all the wrong things of the story where every little detail has to make sense, then yeah, it does have those flavors. If we got rid of like the beginning 20 minutes of like getting onto the ship, if we got rid of like the I can't believe we've never seen anything like this, like that kind of crap, and just got rid of all that, then yeah, I do think there's like some Hammer elements in here where it's just these guys trapped in a location, stumble upon a mysterious woman, and then like they're killed off by a bat guy. That I think is right there. Because we're doing a movie in 2023, we have certain issues that we have to deal with, like character relationships and developments. If I have one thing I would have changed about this movie, and I don't like talking about that stuff, but one change that could have helped work for the narrative is you take the main character, Corey Hawkins, you make him a member of the crew already. I don't think you gain anything by having him be a new member of the crew, where he's like, we need extra bodies on this ship to set sail. And he's like, I'm a doctor, I can help out. Like, if you do that entire narrative and he's already like a doctor on this crew that has tensions with certain members of the crew, you are building off that tension already, because now there's already like the intrigue between those two people disliking each other. Whereas just making him new to the crew, it takes away any like stakes, because we know he's going to be right in the end, as opposed to having everyone feel like a co-lead. Making this guy the central character, I get it, like you need to do that, that's what we do in today's audience. And he's not like a badly written character, just the choices don't necessarily add up to anything worthwhile. You've seen this specific character hundreds of times before. I'm sure you've seen it hundreds of times this year. There's nothing special about it. And you see that Corey delivers it pretty well. You know, he does fine of what he's told to do, and it works okay. Far from the worst performance, you know? Not that there's any bad performances. I think the script is a little wonky. There's a lot of like, it's pretty long. It's a long movie going for 2 hours almost, and you're like, yeah, you don't really need that. There's a lot of like, you know, they say in like script writing, you don't have to have like the characters say the name of the person they're talking to every time they make like a gesture or a sentence. A lot of that. There's a lot of just people saying the names of the person they're talking to, so us, the audience, are like aware of these characters' names. It never comes off as natural. It never comes off as like interesting. And also the script has a lot of like, what is this thing? Like we reiterate the same points a bit. And I think that's fine when you're like talking about like a novel. In a novel, you have multiple chapters that can go on. So you want to like restate something. When we're doing a movie and we have 2 hours, you don't need to constantly remind me that like these bite marks match the bite marks on the bite mark of that. Like I understand that. We all know that. So that's kind of dumb. This does set up a really good like atmosphere for itself though. Like the tone and the visual style represents exactly what we're trying to feel. We're desolate, we're alone, we are fearing for our lives. There is some paranoia creeping in. It is very fascinating when like it affects every single crew member differently. Where some of them like, this is like religious shit for what we've done, we are paying penance. Some of them are like, we're being stalked by a monster, I don't know what's going on. And our lead's like, I have to find a reason for this. And that's all very cool because it just gives it some added flavor. And where this movie very much succeeds is just giving you Dracula being Dracula. Like, it's so fascinating when they like lean into the stuff. The visual cues, the music stings, the quiet nature of the stuff, just the dark shadows, like a monster creeping in the dark trying to consume the flesh and blood of a mortal. It's so visually pleasing like that. And just when we use the aesthetic of the ship to the advantage of that, where we're climbing the sails on the ropes and like something's flying around us when we like get off onto like the little like, you know, getaway ship. I don't know what you call that. It doesn't matter. And it's just like something stalking us. It uses the smoke and the atmosphere and just like the stakes so well. It sets it up so beautifully. The design is prosthetics and it looks so good. The creature is amazing. We build it up slowly where it's like our livestock is being killed. Something's happening we don't know. Some people are seeing a madness appear around us. A mysterious woman shows up. I really like the angle of the mystery woman showing up because that is just classic horror, classic storytelling. We're like, here's a mysterious character. What are they doing here? Oh, they know what's happening. And it kind of gets a little like she can do everything towards the end, but I think it sets up the narrative well. And like I said, we know where this story ends, where everybody has to die. And it's like, yeah, it takes some liberties, which, whatever. It's a modern movie. You have to set up the next thing and talk about the next story. The last, like, 5 minutes, I don't hate them. They're not necessary. I do think you can end the movie where it starts because it's kind of like a, here's where we start, let's go back. If you end it where it starts, that's interesting. Doing the last bit, I don't love it, but seeing like the Orloff aesthetic in 2023 with like that lens, it's really cool because I do like watching like some of like those remastered effects of like the Nosferatu film where you see them like, we did like a 4K blank frames per second and make it look nice. That aesthetic's still scary and looks great. And this Dracula is really cool and fun. I dig that a lot. The character actors in here doing great work. David Dastmalchian doing an accent. Everybody's doing an accent. Like, nobody here is from like the same place, and I appreciate that, where everyone's just trying something, and I support it. But my God, have we just done Liam Cunningham wrong? Like, this guy should be in every single like period piece as a supporting character, till the point he gets his Oscar nom for doing like a big epic in some capacity. Like, you could stick him anywhere, and making him the captain of a ship in the 1800s? Yeah, I buy that completely. Like, the dude is great. He kind of narrates part of the story. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'll follow this. We should be following this guy. He's the bloody narrator. I mean, after all, he's so good. And you just buy, like, this man is broken and he loses everything. That's really cool. And I guess, like, this movie actually built, like, a ship to, like, film on. It's an expensive movie. And it's not doing that good. But I think word of mouth is going to make this one a really interesting watch on rental and streaming in that capacity, because it has really good tension. It sets up its atmosphere very well. The designs are really good. And the more you think about it, maybe you don't like it as much, but you're like, yeah, there is a lot to play with here. And it's trying something different for the Dracula mythos, and that's kind of exciting. What holds it back is just the modern way we have actors behave, the modern way we tell stories with dialogue and characters, and just the framing of which we create these things now. If, say, this was like a late 90s to early 2000s, like schlucky John Carpenter flick, that would be so intense. And I think the director is trying to get there. And I think some performances, like Dastmalchian in particular, is getting to that level. Everything else just kind of hinders it from reaching that. But you don't walk away thinking this is the worst Dracula movie of the year. It's kind of slow, but then it builds itself up. And the moments where it soars higher than most modern Universal Monsters attempts. It's been not even 10 years since Dracula Untold, where it's like, what if Marvel superhero but Dracula? Going back to doing like a chapter from Bram Stoker's book, that's an idea. And I think it's doing a fine job of telling that. This is not a bad movie. I won't defend it. I won't say it's perfect. But if you were to attempt this vibe for the other characters Universal has, if you did this plot with like The Creature, or like we're in like a tomb and it's the Mummy or something like that, that's an idea. That's a really good idea. And it sucks that this is bombing. Well, not even bombing. It's just not doing well, because I think it's going to be very hesitant for Universal to try that again. Then again, Invisible Man did really well, and I think Guillermo del Toro wants to do a Frankenstein, and Maggie Gyllenhaal's doing like a Bride of Frankenstein. I mean, maybe we should try them again. You know? I think it might be a topic for another day, but we could do like a Phantom again, you know, a Hunchback again. You know, maybe we should try these again. It'd be kind of interesting. I don't know. It's not bad. Good looking Dracula, very interesting movie. Not the best performances, but you know, I'm here for like a murderous bat guy on a boat, and I got that. I can't be too mad. If we just leaned a little bit more into that schluck, I'd have a great time. So, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, I am going to give a 6 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.